Hi, everyone. Welcome back to episode 6 of Weird Lily's Lounge. Pandora's box is known to bring about changes. The next 3 episodes are going to highlight the weird and wild. The three of us.
Woo! I'm sorry. Yes, I'm loving this. I'm
I
loving
love how
it.
you drew that. That was really cool. And can you pull that back up real fast? Look at that.
Yes,
Look at the purple.
I love it.
I love
Love
it.
it.
Well, the three of us now are going to step forth on this new chapter. We're ready to find the truth through exploration. We're going to take you on an adventure through urban legends, classifieds, cryptids, conspiracies, even extraterrestrials. Let's get started. I'm going to first take us to Point Pleasant, West Virginia. Now, many of you may have heard of the Mothman legend, but are you sure you know where it started? Let's take you back to a crisp evening, November 12th, 1966. There were 4 grave diggers all around, and they reported to see a giant winged figure gliding through the trees. Now, as a small little town in Point Pleasant, not a lot happened. So having things of this nature were truly talked about, right? Now, it wasn't just a couple days later where another sighting happened. This one was a little more dramatic, though. There was a set of 2 couples driving down a lone road in the middle of Point Pleasant, and suddenly, right in front of them, they saw this giant figure with glowing red eyes. They said that its wingspan was up to 30 feet and it could have been 6 to 7 feet tall.
Can I just say this remark real fast? Why is it always red eyes?
Right.
Right. Right. I agree. Because
Always
red
red eyes.
eyes, red
Always
eyes
yellow
freak
or red.
me out.
Just scare the crap out of you. Like, I mean, what are you gonna do? And they said that it took off just as suddenly as it was there. It was gone, right? So they sped away. Like they're not gonna play around with that. Shortly thereafter, though, they looked in their rearview mirror and saw it was following them. And of course, in their fear, they took off driving. They said they reached speeds of over 100 miles per hour and did not shake the Mothman. He followed them for several miles until suddenly veering off into a field. Now, several of them would have had reported that they wouldn't have said anything had there not been a group because it was just far past what anyone could ever make up. Now, that's just the beginning. The Mothman has stretched over decades, but there was a particular year in the town of Point Pleasant where the sightings were innumerable. Through these years, there were several speculations. Some people said that it was see here, a sandbill crane. Now, the thing about a sandbill crane is they are very, very large birds. Like they are 3 to 4 feet tall, like the size of a small human. And they have red eyes. The outside around their eyes is red. They also have a very large wingspan. Now, the thing about Point Pleasant is it wasn't just your ordinary town. It was also a town that held a World War II ammunitions bunker and weapons machinery. Now, it was said that this worked on parts for the atomic bomb. It was top secret. They had buses that came in, dropped you off at your location, came and picked you up from your location, and drove you out. There was no one really knew what was going on there. That being said, there are speculations that perhaps there were chemicals that leached into the water in which these cranes evolved, causing, deformities and such, which would appear to be monster-like. I think that's probably one of the neatest things about the Mothman is there's so many different theories. You have the theory of mass hysteria. Of course, after these first couple people see the Mothman for the following year, it was several different stories. Your uncle knew someone if you didn't know someone. that had seen the Mothman or had some kind of Mothman experience. Now, growing up in an Appalachian town not too far from Point Pleasant, it was prominent. I remember growing up with the Mothman legend. It was just as prominent in our area as Bigfoot. Everyone knew someone who had a Mothman story.
Did you ever see the Mothman?
I don't believe I did, although that would have been really cool. I can't say that I didn't slightly want to, but at the same time, terrified to do so.
I think we're wicked. That'd be cool.
Be cool, but I'd be terrified.
Steve, do you mind pulling up the picture?
Yeah, give me 1 second. I gotta present.
Okay, so with this, this is the picture, the urban legend of what Mothman may have depicted like. Now, the first accounts did not describe him with arms, but later accounts did. Now, moving on to the fateful day where the Mothman turned into a simple joke to something a little more serious. Let me flip to the next one. And we're going to talk about the collapse of the Silver Bridge. Now, Silver Bridge was to connect Ohio and West Virginia, and that's the Ohio River sitting right there. The date that it collapsed was exactly 13 months from the first sighting of the Mothman, December 15th, 1967. What was found to cause it was a single eye-bar collapse, and due to regulations at the time, there wasn't fail-safes introduced at that time. So when the cracked I-beam happened, it was just a cascade of catastrophe. Unfortunately, there were 46 souls lost, 64 that plunged. Now, it wasn't long before the people in this sleepy little town started speculating that their legendary Mothman may have been a part. There were witnesses saying that they saw him land on the bridge and felt a giant shake. There's other people that said they didn't see him. Now, the interesting part in that is that after this catastrophe, the alleged sightings of Mothman greatly reduced. No longer was it something to joke about. There were several people that said it was an omen for bad, that somehow he was a harbinger for evil. There was even stories made that an indigenous person had cursed the town, which was later to be disproved as a child's play, but that's neither here nor there. But as time has went on, there's been continued rumors of, him still living in the ammunitions factory or, moving elsewhere. There's stories of people hearing or seeing him, in various newer catastrophes. Now there's been no photographic evidence of such to make those accusations valid. However, that didn't stop the nice sleepy little town from being able to grow through this, because now they hold a Mothman festival once a year. You mind showing the picture of the awesome statue they have in the middle of their town? Now this is their wonderful little, what is it? It's a tall chrome polished, 12-foot tall, chrome polished statue that they erected in the middle of town based on these legends. And it's really neat to see how it evolved from what might have been just pranksters into a whole legend. At one point, John Keel wrote a book on it called The Mothman Prophecies, which in 2002 had been made into a movie, which also skyrocketed the town's fame around the idea of Mothman. And as of 2019, during their Mothman festival, they made $2+ million in that weekend. So this is a wonderful revenue as well for the town, for those that are going out there to try to maybe get a glimpse of the Mothman. It's
That
it's pretty
I
neat.
I noticed that they really made the red eyes in that statue very prominent. Like that's
Hmm. Well,
big.
that's one of the biggest things whenever they reported is the just huge glowing red eyes to where it was very light sensitive, like that's the moth, you
Yeah.
know.
That part would freak me out alone, honestly. That part, the
Right?
red eyes, would scare me to death.
The fact that it could keep up with a car going over 100 miles per hour. Excuse
But
me?
says that its wingspan and its trajectory is
Yeah, it, say
Pretty
it
much
glides through
everything
the
about it freaks me
just
out.
yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much. Small little sleepy town in Point Pleasant, you know? You never know. But that's what I had for you today. Now I'm gonna pass you over to Jen, and she's gonna explain something a little bit cooler.
I don't have know if it's a little bit cooler, but it is my favorite cryptid. And I don't know if y'all know this, but Bigfoot has not always been known as Bigfoot. Now, as legends grow, they change. So I don't know if y'all noticed that we've been calling ourselves Weird Lily's Lounge. So we are now Weird Lily's Lounge. We've decided to change things up a bit. So Bigfoot was not known as Bigfoot until 1958. It's rather a modern thing. The name itself is an origin from a man named Jerry Crew. He was a logger in Humboldt County, California. Um, he and his crew kept finding 16-inch or so. Um, yeah, Steve's got pictures for you here. 16-inch or so size footprints in places all around their sites. And when he told others, some had also seen similar, as well as having odd stories of things like heavy oil drums being moved around. So the men started using the term Bigfoot to describe this mysterious culprit. Well, the crew initially thought someone was playing pranks on them, but eventually they contacted the local newspaper, and the newspaper came out and did a story, and word spread fast, and the term Bigfoot was coined and it became a popular term. So, but Bigfoot or Sasquatch, Yeti, Abominable Snowman, Wild Man, there are hundreds of different names for Bigfoot. He began as far back as um, he's an icon in the cryptic world. Okay. He begins as far
Mhm.
back as the native tribes in like the Pacific Northwest is where you begin seeing where Bigfoot reports and
he's like
Sasquatch reports.
one of the number one biggest cryptids in the world, not just
Yes.
in yeah.
And
I
he's
think it's
named, there's a name for him in every culture, in every classification. There is a type of cryptid like him.
it's so
Um,
crazy to me because I've always known him as Bigfoot. I didn't even think that, there would obviously be more names until the modern name came about.
right. He is usually described as 10 to 15 feet tall, muscular bipedal creature, usually covered in black, dark brown, or dark red hair, unless he is considered a Yeti or an abominable snowman. Now, I'll show you the difference. Steve's got a picture of
I'm
a.
going, I'm going.
Oh, you're fine. Steve's got a picture. They're known to be lighter. And the difference is, now a Bigfoot is dark fur, like you saw before. Go back to the original. There you go. This is one of the original Bigfoot pictures. Okay. It kind of looks like a human in a costume, which was how they kind of debunked it back then. This was about the same time as Jerry Crew and his logger crew, the 60s, give or take. But this is usually the color fur that Bigfoot is depicted in. But Yetis or abominable snowmans have lighter colored fur, which is the next picture. And it is because they are in snow areas. They adapted. like polar
You know,
bears.
the camouflage, you know, you need to be able to camouflage to your surroundings. So it
Exactly.
makes sense for their fur to be lighter and know your environment.
Exactly. Most often, they're reported to have human-like faces, broad shoulders, no visible neck to speak of, and long, really muscular arms. Excuse me. Early records of a Bigfoot come as early as 1721, when a French priest was living with the Natchez tribes. He reported a story of having creatures in the forest screaming loudly and stealing their livestock. Um, there was an ecologist, Robert Pyle. He argued that most cultures having accounts of such creatures showed a need in society for a larger in life creature. In other words, he tried to debunk it, saying that people were just looking for another godlike creature or a godlike.
Essentially a mass hysteria claim, you know, saying same thing with like the Mothman saying that once someone saw it, then everyone saw it kind of thing.
Exactly. It's in 1847, Paul Kane reported that stories by the native of what they called Skokoons. It was a race of cannibalistic wild men living on the peak of Mount St. Helens in southern Washington. In this same area, later in 1924, a group of gold prospectors. What?
No, we're just
No, they're just like big old, like that's
yeah,
terrifying.
that
That
is
sounds
terrifying.
utterly terrifying.
Yeah, I saw your reaction, so I was like, "What? Did you have a question?" I'm sorry.
You said cannibals, and we said no.
We said no, thank you.
Well, later on in 1924, a group of gold prospectors actually came across an actual group of them. And they were attacked violently at their camp. And then these are just a few of the native stories. Yeah.
I don't mean like.
According to Live Science magazine, there have been over 10,000 reported Bigfoot sightings in the continental U.S., and about a third of them are in the Pacific Northwest.
It's the dense trees and the national forests.
Yes.
It's a lot of like Yellowstone, and then you have Olympia and all those places. You can get lost.
Washington had over 2,000 to account for out of that 10,000.
I went to Washington last year, and I'm bummed that
Holy crap.
didn't see them.
You might have ran into the cannibal ones. It's okay. I want to run into like a hairy one. You know what I mean? Like one that's nice that I can bring into my house.
Exactly. California had over 1,600. Pennsylvania reported over 1,300. New York and Oregon combined had over 1,000. And what I found odd was Texas reported in over 100 or over 800.
I don't know why. I wouldn't expect that. I would think the heat would be too much.
I can't imagine where they're hiding in Texas.
Unless maybe their hair isn't as long. Because if you think of it as a regional thing.
Oh, so they're naked.
Oh, maybe not naked, but like, what's the small amount of hair to keep them cool?
Like,
maybe a little bit lighter.
like a hairless mole kind of idea.
But isn't there like mountains in Texas, or not mountains, but like canyons?
Yes, and like cave systems and stuff. I'd imagine there is. Yeah. Well, you know, some of their proposed explanations for debunking Bigfoot over the years have been misidentification, like bears and humans dressed as, or just hairy humans, or escaped apes. I thought that was funny.
Did you just say just hairy humans?
Like, yes.
I take that offense because I'm a hairy human.
Another way that they debunk it is pareidolia. If pareidolia is an issue where the human eye tries to turn something into, or the brain tries to turn something into looking human-like. Hoaxes are, of course, among the many ways. One of the things I found interesting was Gigantopithecus is a relic of an extinct population of a quadrupedal Asian ape species. That was a
So
lot to
evolved
say.
apes, essentially, just super evolved, different evolution path from humans, apes.
Well,
Yes.
that's what science is always like. Scientists, people who actually investigate Bigfoot, they they're finding these links in our family trees of different versions of a Homo sapien or what, however you would say it. So I imagine Bigfoot
Right.
probably one of them.
Well, I have another picture of what they call extinct hominidae. Okay, if you'll pull that up for me, Steve.
All right.
It's a species of fossils that have only been found in Africa, but the skull features are similar, so they believe that it's possible to be linked to that as well. So I'll show you this picture, and then it should be my last one.
Oh, I haven't even shared the screen. Hold on. Hold on. We're technical difficulty.
Technical difficulties on Steven.
Still
What I
a good
always thought
performance.
was funny was that they said escaped apes was one of them.
Was this the photo?
That's the photo.
Hey,
Look at
there's
that.
another Homo
There's
sapien
two
there.
Bigfoots standing next to each other.
You know what? I always knew I was part of the Bigfoot race. Ironically, this was taken down in southern Illinois, and there's a huge. We have a Shawnee National Forest down there, and so there's a huge Bigfoot presence in that forest. So if you head on to the Garden of the Gods down in southern Illinois, you'll find that statue.
I love it. And that is how I'm going to segue to you for your information for what you have for us today.
All right. So where I am going, I brought two cryptids to the table, and they're both
Overachiever.
I feel like since you guys did the Mothman and the Bigfoot, big all-star cryptids, I gotta bring in the little guys. The little guys.
I respect that.
But my two are stationed in the New England excuse me, I burped. In the New England area. And for my first one, we are going to go. I'm going to pull up a picture map here. We're going to go to Massachusetts, and we're going to go to a little place called Dover. And if you've ever heard of a little guy called the Dover Demon,
I have a mattress from Dover.
Maybe the Dover Demon is in there.
Probably.
You know what?
He was in your stomach a second ago.
He was. So the Dover Demon is a small humanoid reported from Dover, Massachusetts. It was the subject of an intense scare during the 1970s when multiple witnesses came forward with their sightings. And I got a picture. This is that little guy. He is said to have orangish, reddish eyes.
There we go with the red eyes again.
Yeah, there's another one with red eyes.
That's me in the morning before my coffee.
The Dover Demon is described as looking sort of like the gray variety of alien. So I don't know if you've ever heard of the Greys, but that's kind of where they're getting a little bit of it. Except that it has a rosy tan colored skin instead of the gray skin. The Dover Demon has a large head on a small stick-like body. It can be bipedal, but it often travels on all fours or switches back and forth between the two modes of locomotion. It has eyes that glow, usually orange, red, and there have been some cases of it glowing green. It does not seem to wear any clothing, and unlike the Greys, the Dover Demon does not seem to be associated with UFOs. It just wanders around on its own.
Can I just say that if that little thing crawled up next to me, I would freak out.
Coming at you on all fours.
That would scare me more than anything. I'm more afraid of that than the Mothman, I think. Honestly.
So you're scared of something that might be the size of a Chihuahua dog.
Yes.
So if you come around, well,
Yes, we've discussed this. Yes.
Sorry, I had to get you there.
I mean, if that thing pops around the corner, like the corner of a bush, and you're just walking down the street, all of a sudden it goes like around the corner, are you not going to absolutely just lose your mind? Like everything just so gone,
True.
all of it.
I mean, if I saw it, I imagine it would probably run away. I get the feeling that it's more of kind of like a bunny. Maybe it just might, because there's no, I wasn't able to find any like attacks on anybody. So,
I
well,
think of it as scurrying. I don't think any no hopping. Like it is scurrying.
Bigfoot ain't never attacked nobody neither, but good God.
that we know of,
Right?
but I don't know if the victims of Bigfoot would be able to tell the story of being attacked by a 12-foot brute of a man. Never mind. We're getting crazy here. Uh, Cryptozoologists seldom show interest in the Dover demon. It was a mainstream cryptozoologist, rarely willing to seriously investigate humanoids other than hairy humanoids, Bigfoot. It seems that sightings only happened during a short time period, with most claiming that sightings have now ceased. So there isn't any more sightings of the little guy anymore. So no one knows what happened to him. So
It just moved, guys. Dang.
the Dover demon does not seem to be a pressing matter, unless it got eaten by a cougar or, well, what are some big animals in the New England area? There's cougars in up there, isn't there? Maybe coyotes got a hold of it. We don't know. We don't know.
He may have just died.
Yeah,
May have just, the species may have just waned out.
and from it sounds like there was only one. I don't know if he was the pet of an alien and they were like, let's just dump it on Earth. I don't know what
Stop
happened.
peeing on my spaceship. You stay here.
Enjoy the humans. God, that's terrible. Anyway, there is a sighting that I wanted to talk about. The bizarre tale begins at 10:32 p.m. on April 21st as three 17-year-olds, Bill Bartlett, Mike Mazzocco, and Andy Brody, are driving north of Farm Street. Bartlett, who behind the wheel of the Volkswagen spots something creeping along a low wall of those stones on the left side of the road. At first, he thinks the image is a dog or a cat until his headlights shine on it and he realizes it's nothing he's ever seen before. And this is what he claims to have seen is this, staring right back at him with those. I can see where they would think it's an alien. I mean, you look at it,
I
the
mean, that looks
shoulders.
pretty.
I
That,
see
I
an
don't.
alien. I
I
see an
see an
alien.
alien, and that just. Ooh.
The figure slowly turns its head and stares into the light, its large two round, glassy, lidless eyes shining brightly like two orange marbles. Its watermelon shaped head, resting at the top of a thin neck, is the size of the rest of his body. Except for its oversized head, the creature is thin, with long, spiny arms and legs, and large hands and feet. The skin is hairless and peach colored and appears to have a rough texture, like wet sandpaper, is what Bartlett quoted. Bartley subsequently tells cryptozoologist Lauren Coleman about his experience. Standing no more than 3.5 to 4 feet tall, the figure is shaped like a baby's body with long arms and legs. It had been making its way along the wall and its long fingers curling around the rocks when the car lights surprised it. Unfortunately, neither of Bartlett's companions sees the creature. The sighting lasts only a few seconds, and before Bartlett can speak, the car leaves the scene. Then the creature is gone. Bartlett drops his friends off and goes to his Warpool Street home. Visibly upset, he walks through the door and his father asks him what's wrong. Bartlett retells the story and later sketches what he's seen. And I mean, Yeah, okay, I get it. I see why that would be.
That would be terrifying.
Yeah,
Terrifying. Like, even if it isn't that creature, just that whole experience itself, terrifying.
wet sandpaper. Can we talk
Wet
about that?
sandpaper. No, we can't
Wet,
talk about
No, we
that because
cannot
that's
talk
really
about
gross.
that. We can
wet,
avoid that. Thank you.
wet
That's
sandpaper.
the whole part I wanted to avoid. Thank you.
Right? Oh my gosh.
The continues around midnight. 15-year-old John Baxter leaves his girlfriend Kathy Cronin's house at the south end of Miller High Road. Then Baxter starts walking up the street on his way home. Half an hour, so he's walking by himself. Here we go. Half an hour later, as he was walked up a mile, he observes someone approaching him. Because the figure is short, Baxter assumes it's an acquaintance of his, M.G. Beauchard, who lives on the street. John calls out, and there's no response. Baxter and the figure continue to approach each other until finally the latter stops. Baxter then halts as well and asks, "Who is that?" The sky is dark and the overcast, and he can only see a shadowy form. Trying to get a better look, Baxter takes one step forward and the figure scurries off to the left,
Hell
running
to the no, it doesn't. No.
running down a shallow wooded gully and up the upset bank. Opposite bank. Oh my gosh. Running up the opposite bank. As the figure runs, Baxter hears its footsteps on the dry leaves. He follows the figure down the slope, then stops and looks across the gully. There, yeah,
Wait, followed it?
I would. I'll be honest, I would. I'd be like, what was that? That
Not
you
me,
know,
man. I'm like, that's
I'm
you
gonna
do
be
you, boo
honest.
boo.
One time I saw something moving in the dark and I reluctantly followed it, and it was a possum, and the possum chased me and was hissing at me. So no, I get it. I get it.
Out of the three of us, we know who's going to die first in the horror movie. Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome. As the figure runs, Baxter hears its footsteps on the dry leaves. He follows the figure down the slope, then stops and looks across the gully. There he sees the creature standing in a silhouette about 30 feet away, its feet molded around the top of the rock, several feet from a tree. The creature's body reminds Baxter of a monkey, except for its dark figure eight shaped head. Its eyes, two lighter spots in the middle of the head, are looking straight at Baxter, who after a few minutes begins to feel uneasy. Realizing he has never seen such a creature before and fearing what it might do next, he backs carefully up the slope, his heart pounding. He then walks very fast down the road to the intersection of Farm Street. There, a couple passing in a car pick him up and drive him home. So those were two accounts that I found. Now there is an explanation. Skeptics were bringing this up. Skeptics usually claim that the Dover demon was simply a lost baby moose, glimpsed under unusual conditions that made it seem like a bizarre humanoid that sometimes went on all four legs. People who don't believe that explanation point out that all sightings happened during the wrong time of the year for a moose that small to exist. And they also point out that Massachusetts is far from normal moose habitat.
What
Even,
about the fact that all of them are saying like fingers and like everything molded over?
yeah,
Like,
and
you can't do that with hooves.
yeah,
It's gonna,
and you got to be
it's not
careful.
gonna.
Mama mooses would beat the crap out of you if you
Oh,
were
no
near them.
kidding.
Even if such an orphan moose had been wandering around so close to populated areas, it seems as if it would have been easily captured. If the explanation power of the baby moose appeals to you, then you could get around the worst objection by substituting a creature that does actually exist in that area and can be born any time of the year, a baby calf. An orange furred orphan calf would be a more likely candidate for such a proposal than a baby moose. Others suggest explanations include a monkey, a dog. They even bring up an alien or a simple mutation And of course, it could always be a hoax. Another explanation could be that if it is an escaped or an illegal pet to own, some species of gibbon pets have orange babies. White-cheeked gibbons have an orange color in is an ugh. Hold on. White-cheeked gibbons have an orange color in females. So that's where that could be. So the story of the Dover demon, no one knows what happened to it. It was only seen a couple of times back in the 1970s, and it has simply disappeared, but it's still a heavy topic to talk about in Massachusetts, Dover, Massachusetts. So that is the Dover demon. The other thing that I kind of wanted to talk about real fast to get us moving here, I'm going to bring up a picture. We are going to Lake Champlain of Vermont and New York. So it's this area here, this big lake that runs off from Montreal, Quebec, comes into parts of New York and Vermont. Now, have you guys ever heard of the cousin of Nessie or the Loch Ness Monster?
I've heard of Nessie, but I haven't heard of her having a cousin.
I've heard of it in passing, but I don't know what its name is.
So there's the Scottish Loch Ness Monster, and then America has its own version called Champ, named after Lake Champ. And Lake Champlain, sorry, Lake Champlain is the Adirondacks' largest lake, providing the perfectly playground for boating, fishing, water sports, and lake monsters. That's right, lake monsters.
Every day out on the lake wouldn't be complete without a monster.
If you have a fear of something in the water, don't go to this lake.
Not the place for you.
For centuries, legends and alleged sightings of an enormous swimming monster have captured the imagination of locals, visitors, and even scholars. In the beginning, the indigenous people that had long lived and hunted near Lake Champlain, the Abenaki and the Iroquois, have their own legends about a large creature inhabiting the lake, which looked like a large horned serpent or a giant snake. The Abenaki term for this creature is Gitsikog. Early in the 18th century, Abenakis warned French explorers about disturbing the waters of the lake so as not to disturb the serpent. Samuel D. Champlain, whom the lake is named after, is often credited with being the first European to sight Champ. But readings of his accounts show that he saw something near the St. Lawrence River. Nevertheless, his account of his sightings is an interest to anyone with an interest in lake monsters. Champlain described what he saw like this, quote, "There is also a great abundance of many species of fish." Oh, I'm sorry, there wasn't a quote. I'm sorry. Champlain described what he saw was like this. There is also a great abundance of many fish. Amongst others, there is one called the natives charoso, which is of various lengths, but the largest of them, as these three tribes have told, are from an 8 to 10 foot long feet creature. And then he says, I have seen some 5 feet long, which were so big as my thigh, and had a head as large as my 2 fists, with a snout 2 feet and a half long, and a double row of very sharp, dangerous teeth. Its body has a good deal that the shape of a pike, but it is protected by scales of a silvery gray color and is so strong that a dagger could not pierce them. Now, historians think what champ is a garfish, a class that includes lake sturgeon, which still live in Lake Champlain today. Chaplin's description of the creature sounds very much like a garfish, built much larger than a usual garfish. Now, the lake monster legend grows. The next famous account appears in Plattsburgh Republican newspaper on Saturday, July 24th, 1890. Captain Crumb, I love the name, was aboard a scrow on Bullwagger Bay the previous Thursday morning when he reported a black monster about 187 feet long and with a head resembling a seahorse that reared more than 15 feet out of water. He claimed the monster he saw had 3 teeth, eyes the color of a peeled onion, a white star on its forehead, and a belt of red around the neck. This is a remarkable level of detail concerning an object that was, according to the witnesses, some 200 yards away. Why would you be in the water? Why would you be in the water if you saw that?
Make friends. I don't know.
So you're telling me you would rather make friends with Champ than the Dover Demon?
No, thank you. I would not make friends with either one of them. Thank you.
Neither really, but to each their own, right?
Got the molded fingers. Anyway, 1873 was a busy year for Champ. A New York Times story reported that a railroad crew had seen the head of an enormous serpent in Lake Champlain, with bright silvery scales that glistened in the sun. Both the men and the monster parted ways at that point. In July that same year, Clinton County Sheriff Nathan H. Mooney reported an enormous snake or water serpent he thought was 25 to 35 feet long. Then in August, the steamship W.B. Eddy encountered Champ by running into it. The ship nearly turned over, according to what the tourists said on board. So
Running into it?
They ran into it.
That's incredible.
Never one to miss a trick, showman P.T. Barnum offered a reward of $50,000 in 1873 for the hide of the great Champlain serpent to add to his mammoth World's Fair show. Another group sighting came in 1945 when passengers of the SS Ticonderoga claimed to have seen the creature. Now, this one, I can bring up the picture for it. There is a picture of Champ, and it kind of looks like, let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. Hold on, let me go out. It kind of looks like the Loch Ness Monster. Oh,
it does to me too. I see it. Yeah.
Let me do the full wide screen, so I'll just have to do it like that.
Yeah, it looks like a mini Nessie. Like,
yeah.
That's cool.
Sightings heated up in the late 1900s with photos. By 1992, sightings totaled in 180, with approximately 600 people claiming to have seen Champ all over the lake. Eager children crossing the lake by ferry often look for the lake monster, hoping for a sighting. A few people even managed to snap photos of what they claimed to be Champ. Much like his mystical relative at Loch Ness, Champ sightings and photos are much debated and analyzed. The 21st century saw a new wave of sightings, which numbered in the double digits each summer and prompted interest from Japanese television, The Today Show, NBC's Unsolved Mysteries, and Fox Network sightings. In 2003, the Discovery Channel did a special on America's Loch Ness Monster in the wake of 3 new sightings by June of that year. Champ has been written about in Discover magazine and in scholar journals. Now, this is the cool thing that I like about this. It's a safe haven for monsters like Champlain. Although many people are skeptical of the sightings, Champ is now protected by law on both sides of Lake Champlain, just in case. So there will be no hunting, there will be no skinning, there will be no
I love that.
mounting.
I love that protection, even if there's not been like certification, there's still protection regardless. I like that.
He's important. He's part of the culture up there, and it sounds like he's been there for, or she. I shouldn't be gender assuming it.
Obviously, there's more than one, So
Maybe.
there's obviously more than one. They've been seen in more than one size. So there's a he and a she at least.
Probably lots of producing.
Yes.
So, in 1981, Port Henry, New York, declares their waters a safe haven for Champ. 1982, the state of Vermont passes a House resolution protecting Champ. 1983, in New York, both the state assembly and the state senate pass resolutions to protect Champ. So there's no, yeah, the government's
Don't touch
protected.
Champ.
Don't
Don't
touch
touch
Champ.
him.
He's a champion.
I
Champion.
love that. I do.
Today, Champ is celebrated, whether he exists or not. In Vermont, a baseball team is known as the Lake Monsters, with Champ as their mascot. A Champ statue sits by the water in Port Henry, New York, and images of the monster, looking cheerful and definitely not scary. It appears throughout the area at local businesses and on t shirts, in children's books, and more. It's a historical marker, even sits on the shore in Clinton County in honor to everyone's favorite lake monster. Now, there's one more photo that I want to show before we conclude with Champ. There is a photo. Let me zoom out real fast. I think it was. Hold on. Nope, not that. Okay. Oh, it won't let me go. Hold on. We'll just go to see all photos. So there is a photo of Champ. Where did it go? Well, I thought I had it. There was a photo that it put next to a Plesiosaurus, which is the dinosaur that's based off of Loch Ness, the Loch Ness monster. They put that same photo structure with the long neck and then the bones and the fins next to that photo I just showed you of Champ. And they're thinking that this is another dinosaur that probably survived during the.
I believe it. I mean, there's so much of the waters we have yet to explore. So who's to say there isn't so much more down there that we're not even thinking about?
Probably. Well, that it makes you think. It makes you think, I guess. And it's just cool to see that Champ is still really relevant and is part of the culture up in the New England area. Well, I think that concludes this episode of episode 6. I think the next topic we're going to be talking about is ghosts, right? In this Pandora's phase. So stay tuned for next week. We're going to be talking about ghosts. Hit that like and subscribe button and stay weird, everybody. Stay weird.
Bye, guys. Love
Bye,
y'all.
y'all.